Okay, welcome back to the Investigative Journal on this December 9th, Friday, 2016 day on our calendar. I'm your host, Greg Anthony. You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com. You can listen to my show every evening from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. That's Monday through Friday, Pacific time. Or they play the show at 11 a.m., and if you can't get it there, go to my long-standing website, arcticbeacon.com, and you can get shows going back over a decade regarding what I call the Vatican-led New World Order, all of its ramifications and tentacles that spread throughout this great world of ours. And we discuss it right here. That's why we've been called the alternative to the alternative media, and that will be one of my topics later in the show, one of my main topics. I got 2 or 3 today, very important. But before I get to that, let me give you the Jesuit quote of the day. Now, this came from Friedrich von Hardenberg, and you probably, like me, haven't heard of him, but he's a German philosopher who had this to say about the Jesuit order. Quote, "Never before in the course of the world's history had such a society, the Jesuit order, appeared. The old Roman Senate itself did not lay schemes for world domination with greater certainty than success than the Jesuit order." And thank you, Friedrich. He made that statement in the early 1800s. Now, before I get to my main stories of the day, why don't we do a feel-good story of the day? I used to do that segment and look for something good that's happened in the world. And this one goes right to a black homeless woman who says, now listen to what she says. She says that Donald Trump, yes, Donald Trump gave her a free place to live in Trump Tower for 8 years, rent-free, and she's still there. Now, I don't know how many of you have lived in New York and been to the Trump Tower, but it's a really ritzy place. And I've been through it a couple times. And let me tell you the story. I lived in New York for 6 months, 6 to 7 months, and that's a story in itself. And if I started to tell you everything that happened to me during those 6 months, I would take up the entire show. But anyway, it's related. How many of you have almost been homeless? That's another good question. Or were you close to homeless? How close have you been to it? Now, I'm going to just relate my story real quickly. When I lived in Rome, I lived quite well for about 5 to 6 years. And then I decided, when I couldn't get any of my stories published, to maybe travel around a bit, see the countryside. And I spent maybe 6 to 8 months doing that and went broke, to be honest with you. I had enough money to get back to the States. And when I landed, I decided I was going to go to New York because my uncle had an apartment there. Well, little did I know, he moved to upstate New York with my aunt and left the apartment vacant, and I couldn't find him. So, boy, I was in trouble. I remember checking into the YMCA. I had about $30 in my pocket after I checked in, so that gave me one more day in a strange city. I'd never been in New York before. And I said, what am I going to do? Now, this is a message to all you millennials out there. All these crybabies who are waiting for entitlements, waiting for food stamps, and all this kind of stuff. Now, look, the economy's a little more difficult now, but there's still a way to get things done. And I'll tell you what, I'm an educated guy, college degree, law degree, and guess what? I had $35 in my pocket, and I had to get a job. Or I was going to be out on the street, and that never happened to me before. So guess what I did? I went to Little Italy, and I said, I've been living in Italy. I know Italian food. I think I'll be a waiter. And that's quick money, right? And I'll tell you, it worked out great. That same day, I met this guy as Italian cook. He was from New York, a New York Italian. And he said, listen, my brother on the east side needs a waiter. Why don't you go over there? So I went to the east side, got a job as a waiter that day. And I said, I don't have any black pants or a shirt. The guy lent me $50 to get a pair of black pants and a shirt so I could work that night. And I paid him back. I worked that night. I was making $150 a night, and things were better. I found a little apartment, gave me a month, and my uncle came back, found him, and he allowed me to stay in his rent-free apartment, and things went well from there. And ended up, guess what? I meet this guy in an Italian restaurant who owned, you ever been in Central Park with those hansom cabs? he asked me if I'd ever rode horses. And I said, sure. I've driven them. I've driven carriages. Remember my story about Lilo Simonello when I was on a chariot in Rome? So he gave me a job. He owned 10 medallions. That's $1 million. And there's about 100 they give out for these hansom cabs. And let me tell you something. What a great job for about 6 months before I decided I wanted to go to California. And I made it was good cash. I'm telling you, one thing led to another. So all you young people out there, don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. Look, I've been a waiter. I can tell you all the number of jobs I've had through my life. And it's much better to do that than to sit around waiting for a welfare check. Now, this black woman, listen to her story as Trump helped her out. And this is my feel-good story of the day. Now, most people think Donald Trump, half the country thinks he's, this billionaire who doesn't have a heart. Now, granted, he's got a lot of money. But I always said if you can help one person, that's better than helping nobody. So listen to this woman's story. It's about a 3-minute clip. Here we go.
I am a squatter in Donald Trump's building, Trump Tower, in New York City. As you can see, I'm in my pajamas. There's Central Park right there. And that tall building is the Essex House on Central Park West, near 59th Street. I came in here about 9 years ago and snuck in the building and just started occupying one of the empty rooms in here. By the time our housekeeper noticed I was here the next day, she called the manager and they called the New York City police. Who came up here and told me I had to leave or I would be arrested. When I told them I would not go, they contacted Mr. Trump over the phone, and he came down here. Instead of him evicting me off the property, he said that I can stay. And it's been 8 years I've been here. Not only did he not evict me off the property, he makes sure that I get 3 meals a day, a room service, and that I get a delivery of fresh flowers every week. So you people, not a bad guy at all. If it weren't for him, I'd be homeless, I'd be dead right now. I'd be in the street. I asked him how am I going to pay him back for all of this, and he told me I can pay him back whenever I get it, which is never. I have no idea why he did this for me. It's been 9 years, and I've been here for totally free, and I haven't paid a dime. Donald Trump is not a bad guy. He's a wonderful, wonderful man. And everything I'm telling you today is true.
Okay, boy, she really lucked out. And, I'll follow up on that story to see if it is true. 8 years. Some people may say it might have been better if someone helped her find a job. But anyway, that's my feel-good story of the day, and we'll keep an eye on that to see if it is true. I've saw it on a number of different places, and we'll follow up on that. Anyway, let's get to I have 3 main stories today. And the first one is I want to make a comment regarding what the Pope said recently about the Alt-Media Investigative Reporters, and that they're crap eaters, and I'll explain that in a minute. And that comes on the heels, it's related to the Pizzagate story that we covered yesterday, and I don't have to go into what that is again, so go to my show yesterday and get my take on it. And I believe it came out in WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks, I believe, is a CIA operative operation, and I think this was allowed to come out into the press for a reason. Well, since then, guess what? The Washington Post said that all of these people that are creating these fake news stories regarding Pizzagate and others should not be allowed to be on the internet, and they put out a list of over 200 websites that are supposedly connected to Russian infiltrators. They've recently come back and said the story was a bit bogus and a scam, so they've had to retract some of the story, and that leads us into Pope Francis. But let me tell you what I'm going to do after that. I want to talk a little bit after that about what happens when countries, what happens to a country depending on the amount of Muslims that live in that country. And I've talked about that before, and I want to replay a little 5-minute clip about Muslim extremist groups being allowed. I'm always getting phone calls in the early part of the show. But anyway, about Muslim extremist groups that are being allowed to exist in this country, FBI knowledge, but they're only monitoring them. They're not coming down on them at all, allowing them to walk around with rifles and prepare for war. And that leads into my last story of the day, and that's to finish up this. Hopefully we'll have time. If not, we can do a whole show Monday regarding the Christian ministries that have been targeted by our government and the Vatican. And it seems to me that it's a story that needs to be compared. Why are they allowing Muslim extremist groups to exist when they come down on peaceful Christian groups and put a peaceful pastor in jail for 175 years? Are they really trying to destroy Christianity? Well, I think so. I think they're just trying to destroy Western civilization as we speak. So this story, and I'm going to read to you now, is just outrageous, what the Pope said. And this is on the heels of, I talked about Pizzagate, I talked about what the Washington Post is saying, and you're hearing in the mainstream that we got to start cracking down on these internet websites and these reporters. But what the Pope said here is completely off the wall. And you got to see this. This is a true story because I verified it. It's on several websites. He made this statement to the Belgium Catholic weekly Tertio, and even Reuters covered it. So he did actually say this. Now, let me give you the headline on the way one news agency covered it. It said this: Pope Francis, Alt-Media Investigative Reporters, Alternative Media Investigative Reporters are crap eaters. He used the S word. I won't use that today. But anyway, Pope Francis has launched a vicious, scathing attack on American alternative media and investigative reporters, labeling them crap eaters and warning them not to cover scandals, even if they are true. Did you hear that? And instead concentrate on pumping out nice stories for the masses. Now here's what he said. He said, quote, I think the media have to be very clear, very transparent, and not fall into, no offense intended, the sickness of coprophilia. Now, do you know what coprophilia is? Let me give you the definition. It's an abnormal interest and pleasure in feces or defecation. Now, that is always wanting to cover scandals, covering nasty things, even if they are true, the Pope said in an interview with the Belgium Catholic weekly Tertio. So he's saying, please don't cover our pedophilia in our church. Please leave us alone. Cover something good. Please don't cover the fact that there are pedophiles in the White House. Please don't cover, I'm not only talking about those scandals, but other scandals, money scandals. Please don't talk about the Vatican being a money laundering operation. Please don't talk about all the crimes we do. Just leave us alone and let us do what we've always done in the course of our existence for all these hundreds of years. You nasty, nasty reporters. And he went on to say, and since people have a tendency towards the sickness of coprophagia. Now that has to do with the same thing. A lot of damage can be done. So he's really saying that people who are investigative reporters looking, covering scandals that should be covered are crap eaters, or have a fascination with feces. What the heck? Who is this guy? Now, Pope Francis, who recently scrapped the proposal tribunal to prosecute bishops who covered up for pedophilia, he doesn't even want to touch it. Pedophilia priests continued his extraordinary tirade against independent investigators, comparing the uncovering of corruption of being sexually aroused by feces. Wow, this guy is off the wall, isn't he? But this is what we're up against, folks. I told you this is going to come to this. And this whole Pizzagate thing ignited this thing, well, let's control the internet. And it's coming down. Don't worry. It's just a matter of time. I get calls from people overseas that listen to my show, and they say, Greg, at least you can talk about these things in America, but we can't here. They've had their websites taken down. They've been harassed. I've got stories that are unbelievable. Now, the Pope's comments come in the midst of Pizzagate, this child sex scandal we discussed yesterday and went viral on the internet. And the head of the organization that has been forced to pay out nearly $4 billion in settlements related to pedophilia in its ranks believes, that we're talking about the Pope, they've already paid out $4 billion, and man, that's the tip of the iceberg. And who said that the other day? I remember when I was covering and said the Vatican is the richest organization in the world. And they said, no, their bank statement is only $23 million. I said, what are you talking about? Here they paid out $4 billion in settlements because of the pedophilia nature of their priests all over the world. Now, believes that Pizzagate, he believes this, that the Pizzagate investigation must be stopped, even if it's true. Instead, reporters, he says, should focus on writing stories that, quote, educate the public. Well, what do you think we do here? We're educating the public about your satanic nature and what you guys have been doing throughout the course of history and doing today to us. Nothing is more important, right? But he wants us to basically not do that, not cover the truth. The interview was distributed to reporters in an Italian translation from the Argentine-born Pope's Spanish. It is the strongest and most blunt language ever used by a pope about the media or any other group. However, it isn't the first time that Pope Francis has discussed sexual interest and excrement. In March 2013, he warned that journalists risk becoming sick from their coprophilia, and that they could be fomenting coprophagia in their readers. Wow. What a story. Please give me some comments on that. Please give me some comments on that story. And you can get a hold of me at gregbeacon@gmail.com. How long do we have here on the internet now? The Pope's the head of this whole organization we talk about, this New World Order. And he's really talking to the editors and publishers that are under his control and the people that control the internet, which is now out of the hands of the United States, thanks to Obama, to start cracking down on these sites. And they listed 200 sites that were supposedly need to be shut down, but they had to back off on that for some reason. But that's just the beginning, the tip of the iceberg. They will go after anybody that doesn't follow what the regime wants you to follow. Okay, wow, let's move on. I got about 5 minutes on this side of the break. I want to play this little clip appeared on the O'Reilly Factor. It's on Fox News, Bill O'Reilly's show, and he talked about the 5 Islamist groups in America that we need to be worried about. It was a good 5-minute clip regarding the Clarion Project. So let's get to that. That leads into my commentary for the next half hour.
In the Impact segment tonight, there's a group called the Clarion Project, which is dedicated to exposing the dangers of Islamic extremism. Recently, we asked Clarion to pinpoint for us 5 dangerous situations here in the USA. With us, Ryan Morrow, national security analyst for the Clarion Project. So you have many, many more than this, but we picked the top 5 that I think will be of interest. The first one is in Hancock, New York, about 145 miles northwest of Manhattan. What's going on in Hancock?
There's actually a place there called Islamberg. They have a sign that says, "Welcome to Islamberg." It's about a 60, 70-acre large compound, and it's the headquarters for a group called Muslims of the Americas that follows a radical cleric in Pakistan. The videotape that's on the screen is something that was given to me by law enforcement, showing them engaging in guerrilla warfare training at that Islamberg compound.
Okay, so Islamberg, upstate New York. They have weapons. It's private property.
Right.
All right. They're training on the property. Can the authorities do anything about it?
Beyond monitoring them, no, because they're not listed as a foreign terrorist organization. FBI documents that we've obtained do show that they consider them a threat, but because they don't have that designation, they're able to operate in the U.S., and we have a dozen.
Do you know how many people are up at this compound?
And that specific one, no, but the estimates of the number of members that this group has across the country, they say they have 22 of these places across the country, is somewhere around 3,000.
Training ground. Wow. All right, now we have the Dar el-Hara Islamic Center in Falls Church, Virginia. What's going on there?
Right, a history of radical leadership over there. Anwar al-Awlaki used to be their imam before he went over and he joined Al-Qaeda. And there was even videotape that was taken of the current imam speaking recently in Virginia, where he specifically said that Muslims should be first in line to get the arms for jihad.
All right, so at this center in Falls Church, there's an imam there presently, right, who wants to get arms for the jihad.
He preaches that is a requirement upon Muslims.
Wow. All right, the third one is one I mentioned last night in Brooklyn, New York, with John Stossel. It's the Masjid at-Taqwa Mosque. What's going on here?
That's led by Siraj Wahaj, one of the most radical imams in the country, yet he manages to be a rock star speaking at Muslim events across the country and college campuses.
He's going to be in Dallas this weekend in Garland, Texas for a big conference, and I brought that up to the imam we had on last night, who didn't seem to think this guy was so radical.
He didn't address that. He was addressing the issue of whether he's been prosecuted, which is a whole nother thing. If you look at what he's been preaching, it's sheer anti-Americanism, turning America into a caliphate, and his mosque was even suing the NYPD because they were conducting surveillance.
That's right, that de Blasio pulled off. So this is a bad hombre, as I said to Sasa last night. Then there's another one in New York City. This is in Jamaica, Queens, the Islamic Circle of North America. What's this all about?
This is a major organization with origins in Pakistan, with an Islamist group over there. Polls show that only about 2% of Muslim Americans say that this group represents them, but they're one of the most well-organized there. One of the leaders was actually indicted on war crimes in Bangladesh, and we have a copy of one of their teaching guides that tells Muslims to engage in deception in order to advance the jihadist cause and to implement Sharia governance.
All right, then this comes out of Queens, right? Out of this mosque. That's
the headquarters.
That's the headquarters. All right, and finally, and this is the most controversial one, you have CARE, the Council on American-Islamic Relations, and they've been on this program. They do a lot of media. And what are you saying, that they're a dangerous group?
Yes, they are basically a political influence operation of the Muslim Brotherhood, according to the Justice Department, not according to me. They specifically listed CARE as an entity of the U.S. Muslim Brotherhood, specifically its Palestine Committee that was secretly set up to advance the Hamas agenda. And the FBI wiretapped their leaders in 1993, talking about setting up CARE so they could influence the media in their direction.
Well, and that's what they do. They come out and they say, look, we're moderates, and we just want to give you our point of view. But you say that they're directly tied into terrorist groups?
Into the Muslim Brotherhood, yes.
Which is a terrorist group.
Right, and Hamas is the Palestinian wing of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Okay. Now, final question is, this is pretty frightening stuff, but you would...
Okay, we have to take a break right now. We'll come back in the second half hour on the Investigative Journal. But you can see the government just allowing this to happen while they're persecuting Christian groups, like we're going to get into next half hour and talk about that on the Investigative Journal.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on Internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
The book of Revelation says, "The spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ." This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.
Okay, back for the second half hour of the Investigative Journal on this December 9, 2016 day on our calendar. And you heard that. You heard what was going on in that clip that O'Reilly played. I mean, the FBI and our government and our right to the very top, probably on the Pope's orders, is allowing these Muslim extremist groups to carry weapons, to prepare for war, and they don't do anything about it. They probably give them the land. And then we have this going on all over the country, folks. And then we talk about the intellectual side with Fethullah Gulen and the Gulen movement, which if you want to go back to some of my shows, you're going to see we've also allowed charter schools in the name of moderate Islam to function in this country to the tune of over $150 million a year in taxpayer money. So they're spreading this false idea that Islam is moderate and they want to live side by side with Christians, which is a bunch of bunk. And they're doing it both from the intellectual level and also from this militant level we're seeing. Now, I asked the simple question. If you don't think Christianity is being persecuted here, why would they go to the extremes of allowing this to continue? People with weapons, militant group with weapons, but yet they'll come down hard on Christian groups, i.e. the Alamo ministry they've tried to destroy for 40 years. Tony Alamo, the pastor who's never carried a weapon, who doesn't talk about insurrection or taking over the government. All he wanted to do was to spread the word of the Bible. See, the Pope doesn't want God to be talked about in that manner. He wants the Bible destroyed, just like they used to destroy it and kill people back during the old days. when the Protestant Reformation began. That's exactly what Tony preaches, and these people preach, and other Christian groups in this country preaching exactly what the Reformers did. And it can't be allowed here. You see, that's what's happening. So when somebody tells me that Islam wasn't created by the Vatican, you go back in history and start looking at it. And they created it to create an enemy. It's not a peaceful religion at its heart. Just read the Quran or read the Bukharis, and you'll see what I'm talking about. They hide as moderates. They pretend they're moderates, but that depends on how many people you allow into our country. If this country had 50% Muslims, we're in trouble. But you know what? Before I get back, I want to, make that analogy between how the Alamo ministry and other Christian groups have been persecuted here. And at the same hand, they're allowing these militant groups and these intellectual, supposed moderate Muslim groups function in this country. For what reason? Now, the best book to read on this, I think, and I'm going to go back to it. There's a guy by the name of Dr. Peter Hammond. This little article came out on Front Page Magazine. And the book is, Dr. Hammond's book is Slavery, Terrorism, and Islam, the Historical Roots and Contemporary Threat. Now I'm going to quote from this article. Islam, it says, is not a religion nor it's a cult. It's a complete system. Islam has religious, legal, political, economic, and military components. The religious component has a beard for all the other components. It hides what it really is. Kind of sounds like the Vatican, doesn't it? Same thing. Well, they created it. It's their stepchild. Islamization occurs when there are sufficient Muslims in a country to agitate for their so-called religious rights. What do you think the Vatican did here in this country? They got their sneaky little feet in here through this idea of the freedom of religion and the Constitution of the United States, because in the beginning of our country, no one wanted, Catholics couldn't even vote. They didn't want the Jesuits here at all, but they snuck their way in through, I believe our founding fathers working together with them. And now what they've taken over, look at how many, look at what the Vatican started out with one diocese. Look at now. They're taking over. And once they take over, they take away your freedom, your religious rights. Exactly what Islam does. So when politically correct and culturally diverse societies agree to the reasonable Muslim demands for their religious rights, they also get the other components under the table. Here's how it works. And this is percentages from the World Fact Book, and this was taken in 2007, so I imagine they've gone up in many places, but we're going to have to use this right now. As long as a Muslim population remains around 1% of any given country, they will be regarded as a peace-loving minority and not as a threat to anybody. No. In fact, they may be featured in articles and films, stereotyped for their colorful uniqueness, and that's what you're hearing from, Obama, Barack Hussein Obama. You don't think he's a Muslim? He's a Muslim. Let's just call it for what it is. All his policies have helped Muslim groups in Saudi Arabia. They've helped the foreigners, and they've letting Americans out to dry here in this country. All the policies, domestic and foreign, have been leading towards that. So in the United States, the population was 1%. It's probably a little higher now. Australia, 1.5. Canada, 1.9. China, 1.1 to 2%. Muslims in Italy, 1.5. That's higher. Norway, 1.8. That's higher now. You know that. We're going back a number of years here. So, you're seeing that influx in those countries, right? And we've talked to people in Europe about that and what's really happening in their streets. What all these, what do you think that Clinton and Obama went in to destabilize Syria and create all this refugee problem in the Middle East from Iraq and all over the place, Africa, you name it, Somalia. And that was on the orders of the Pope. And we are nothing more than we are the military arm of the Vatican. Now, if the population gets to 2 to 3, they begin to proselytize. from other ethnic minorities and disaffected groups, with major recruiting from jails and among street gangs. And we talked about that. Right now they're recruiting in jail, in our prisons. And the population here is a little higher, and we're seeing these Muslim extremist groups crop up here. In Denmark, 2%. Germany, 3.7, that's higher now. United Kingdom, 2.7, that's higher. Spain, 4, that's higher. Thailand, 4.6. Now, from 5% on, they exercise an inordinate influence in proportion to the percentage of the population. Now, remember, they like to say Islam is a peaceful religion. It is not. Look, the Vatican isn't a peaceful organization, and they claim to be, the head of that group claims to be God on earth, Jesus Christ on earth. My goodness. Now, from 5%, they exercise this inordinate influence, right? They will push for the introduction of halal, clean by Islamic standards food, this kind of food they want, thereby securing food preparation jobs from Muslims. They will increase pressure on supermarket chains to feature it on their shelves. That's going on in New York right now, along with threats for failure to comply, threatening us. Now, when the populations get higher, France, 8%, now it's higher there. Philippines, 5%, that's higher there. Sweden, 5%, that's higher now. Switzerland, 4.3%. Netherlands, I don't know, 5.5%. Trinidad and Tobago, 5.8%. At this point, they will work to get the ruling government, when they have this amount, to allow them to rule themselves under Sharia, the Islamic law. The ultimate goal of Islam is not to convert the world, but to establish Sharia all over the entire world. And that means no more Constitution, fellows. No more rights here. And the Vatican will be just pleased with that, because they work together. Now, in England right now, I talked to a couple of friends over there. Their Sharia courts functioning right now, so I did a little research. There's over 45 Sharia courts functioning in London. The mayor of London, they have a mayor. He's a Muslim. All right. When Muslims, however, reach 10%, listen to this, they will increase lawlessness as a means of complaint about their conditions. What about the Paris car burnings? Look at what's going on there now. Any non-Muslim action that offends Islam will result in uprisings and threats. There's people going around Amsterdam. There's people going around Paris. There's Muslims going around London. Muslims going around Italy right now. They call them the Muslim Brigade. They go around looking for women that are, wearing miniskirts or something, saying, you can't dress like that. They're threatening people who, may have a glass of wine. Yes, it's going on right now in Guyana. 10%. I don't know what that is now. India, 13.4%. Israel, 16%. Kenya, 10%. Russia, 10 to 15%. I didn't realize that. Okay, 10 to 15%. Now, after reaching 20%, expect hair-triggering rioting, jihad militia formations, sporadic killings, and church and synagogue burning. In Ethiopia, they're 32% Muslims. Okay, and that's going on there. And it's going on in other places. Look at what ISIS, that Obama, Clinton, all the policies created ISIS for this reason. To move it not only from an internal Islam from, infiltrating from within. They brought Islam here. They want to do it with ISIS openly cutting heads off. So it's a two-prong approach they use, don't they? Yeah. Now, after reaching 40%, according to Dr. Hammond in his book, after he's researched this, you'll find widespread massacres, chronic terror attacks, ongoing militia warfare, Bosnia, Chad, Lebanon, 40 to 59% in all those countries. So you see what I'm getting at? And what they want is like 100% all over the world. They're not satisfied until every last jihad, every last Christian's head's cut off in one way or the other. And the Vatican will be just happy with that. From 60%, you may expect unfettered persecution of non-believers and other religions, sporadic ethnic cleansing, genocide, use of Sharia law as a weapon, and heavy jizya tax, it's called, placed on infidels. Albania as an example, Malaysia, Qatar, Sudan, After 80%, expect state-run ethnic cleansing and genocide. So what we have to look forward to if we don't get this under control. And it's not easy when, the Vatican controls all of the governments of the world. So do you think this is coming? You answer that question. You can email me at gregbeacon@gmail.com. As you can tell, I'm getting a little agitated here. Now, after 80%, expect state-run ethnic cleansing. Bangladesh, 83%. Egypt, 90%. Gaza, 98.7% Muslim. Indonesia, 86.1%. Iran, 98%. Muslims, 97%. In Iraq, Jordan, Morocco, all above 90. Palestine, 99%. Syria, all these are 2007 before the Syria attack. But these countries are completely destroyed now. And, they're running around wanting to cut Christians' heads off. Turkey, 99.8%, and that's the story in itself. Turkey, I'm going to devote a whole show or two on Turkey. That's an interesting place, and I've got some contacts that are in Turkey right now that I'm going to bring some really interesting stuff. And I want to thank a couple people in Italy for helping me with that. United Emirates, Arab Emirates, 96%. 100% will usher in the peace of Dar es Salaam, the Islamic House of Peace. There's supposed to be peace because everybody is a Muslim. And is that peace? Peace through tyranny, right? There's no peace. Afghanistan, that's 100%. Saudi Arabia, 100% Muslim. Somalia, 100%. Yemen, 99.9%. I don't want to be there. Of course, that's not the case. They don't want peace. To satisfy their bloodlust, Muslims then start killing each other for a variety of reasons. See, now they fight against each other. Sunnis against the Shia. Before I was 9, here's what someone said, Leon Uris. Before I was 9, I had learned the basic canon of Arab life. It was me against my brother, me and my brother against our father, my family against my cousins, and the clan against the tribe, and the tribe against the world, and all of us against the infidel. Wow, Leon Uris put it pretty well there, didn't he? It is good to remember that in many, many countries, such as France, the Muslim populations are centered around ghettos based on their ethnicity. Muslims do not integrate into the community at large. Therefore, they exercise more power than the national average would indicate. So remember that. And I want to thank, what's the name of this magazine that provided this information? It's called, Front Page Magazine. Thank you. And go to frontpagemagazine.com. And also get that book by Hammond. The book is called Slavery, Terrorism, and Islam, the Historical Roots and Contemporary Threat. Okay, so there you have it. Go to that book. And now I want to move on to an article that Tony Alamo, the pastor who's been put in jail for 175 years, a Christian pastor, who we've ran a petition. It's on the website. You can go to freetonyalamo.com. Sign that petition. And a good way to get people to sign also is to put a little note on comment sections of all the YouTubes you go to. I get a lot of people contacting me that way. I'm going to start doing it more and more each day. So if you go to 10 YouTubes a day, put on 10 notices. Let people know what's going on regarding the persecution of these ministries. You don't get it from the alternative media. You don't get it from the mainstream media. They tell a completely different story. They're allowing these Muslim extremists to exist, and then they run articles that Tony Alamo's, this ministry is a cult of child abusers, when it's completely false. Completely false. And they framed him. And we've got evidence, testimony of the undercover agents who were asked to frame him, and yet nothing is done. That's because the Pope tells us we should not cover scandals. We should only say good things about them. We shouldn't talk about the fact that they cover up, and they cover up for all of their pedophile priests around the world, that they don't even want to stop that. They want to make it get bigger and bigger and bigger. We shouldn't talk about those things. We should just talk about the good things that the Vatican does, and the good things. Something, It's about time somebody tell this guy where to go, you know? And I think he knows where he's going at the end of his life. But he's going to try to take as many people down with him. But anyway, I wanted to get back to Tony Alamo. He sits in prison right now. We're trying to get him out. Go to that, freeTonyAlamo.com. At the top, you can then sign. You hit a little button there. It says petition. Go to that. Sign it. Leave a note. We got some great messages. Next week, I'll read some. And we're going to try, when Trump gets in office, to go to the pardon attorney. There is a pardon office there, and we're going to try to get him released. And we've got to do it very methodically. We've got to get all the evidence. We're going to have to do a nice writ. We're going to have to get a lot of people to sign, and I want to get the affidavits from a number of the couple of the FBI agents that said he was framed, and then show this pardon attorney how this court was nothing more than a travesty of justice, how he was framed from the beginning. And then we also, if you know somebody, governor in your state, anybody that can lend a hand here, please get to me, gregbeacon@gmail.com. You see, there's somebody calling me right now. But anyway, let me get to this article. I got about 8 minutes, and I'm piecing through it. This is the third time I'm going through it. Now, he sat and wrote this article. He probably transcribed it because he's 82 years old. He's blind, and he still is preaching in prison, trying to help people there. You know, God be with him, really, and pray. Give him a prayer every now and then during the day. So let me get to this article. It's called Bill Clinton, the Pope, and I. Tony Alamo just wrote it, and I think you'll understand where the Clintons were involved in bringing this ministry down. And also, you got to know that the Clintons are behind. They get a lot from that Clinton Foundation. They're getting money from extremist Muslim groups, from Saudi Arabia. They're the biggest sellouts in the world. They sold us out to China. They sold us out to all these countries. This is where it's all coming from. And they're going to end up in the same place the Pope's going. So don't go down with them. Figure out who they are today. And don't listen to the Pope tell us that we're all, what is that, acrophiliacs or whatever he's talking about. There's some, okay, here's Tony. He said, Tony's article. I'm about the third section. I've been reading it in parts. I've served the Lord, he says, for over 50 years now, feeding, clothing, and housing thousands of people, buying water wells and truckloads of food for people in Africa, and helping people all over the world. So many wild tales have been gone and told about me and Susie and myself in the ministry over the last few decades. Bill Clinton wrote several of them in his book, entitled My Life, on pages 169 and 70. He said that I was a pretty good promoter, and since Susie is gone, I didn't have anything to promote. I don't know what Bill's talking about, that I'm supposed to have promoted Susie. Everybody in the church promoted the gospel, the same as Susie and I did, and all we did was take the gospel to the streets. Hundreds of us witnessed to people. That's how we got started, and that's how we still operate today. However, after Susie died, I had to bring in most of the finances that came into the church, if that's what he meant by promotion. If I ever asked Susie, should I do this in business or do that in business, or asked if I should build a house or a building for one thing or another, she would say, you know that I don't do that. You're Tarzan and I'm Jane. You know that you do all of that. I would never be so stupid as to ask her if I should do this or that. She never took part in any of that at all. She was busy preaching the gospel. On top of my many responsibilities for running the church, the IRS and several other agencies pulled me into court. We've talked about this, folks, and I'm talking now, how they framed him back in the 90s. They stole all of our property. They kicked everybody out on the street. I had to find new living facilities for our people. I was in a continuous state of finding ever more places for our people to live and new ways to put food on the table. And, let me say something here. They're allowing these Muslim extremists, just use that one place in Islamburg in New York, there are 60 or 70 acres they give them, and they're running around with guns. Oh, that's okay. But you want to help people, clothe people, feed people, tell the people the truth about the gospel and the Antichrist in the book of Revelations, and the Vatican being that organization, and the American government working together, the first and second beast. You do that, and man, you are going to be in trouble. Now, back to Tony's article. Clinton misrepresented us greatly in his book, when he stated we were running a large farming operation. The Lord has always forbidden me to go into the farming business. I never did. I never had truckloads of food from this non-existent farm brought from Los Angeles to Arkansas. That never happened. And this man, who stated this was his first encounter with us, obviously showed how little he knew about us by saying all these false charges. Clinton wrote that I announced that God told me he would raise Susie from the dead someday. God told Sue and me that she was going to die and that she'd be gone for quite a while, but after that she would be raised from the dead and we would be the two witnesses mentioned in chapter 11 of the book of Revelations. Bill Clinton also stated that's what Clinton was saying. And Bill Clinton also stated that I put Susie in a glass box in our house, was going to keep her there until the day God raised her up and dead. None of these things are the truth. If you read the statement from Edward's Fenton's funeral home, you see that we had a normal funeral. Hundreds of people attended. Her casket was at Batesville. And he goes on to explain, that all these things were lies put out, just like they lied about what the ministry really is. And he says this, I only have a few seconds. I never tried to keep our empire going, as Clinton said. He always said a promoter is lost without his product. And boy, Clinton just kept on lying. And I'll finish the article Monday or so. I'm all out of time. But I think you get my point here, what's really happening in this country. Tony and his ministry have been used as an example where if you are a good Christian, if you have a good Christian ministry, you better not speak up against the Vatican. You better keep your mouth shut or you're going to end up just like them. Don't be afraid though, folks. I've been doing this for 10 years, and let me tell you, it's well worth it to keep telling and searching for the truth and understanding it. And I'm thankful that I was put in the position to meet these people, to be the places I've been all my life to understand this stuff. It may not have worked out the way I thought my life was going to be when I was young, but it sure worked out better. And the same can happen to you if you just keep following the truth. Have a good weekend, by the way. And we'll see you Monday on the Investigative Journal.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie, with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character, as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy, in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the Revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the Left Behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.